So in this tutorial, we'll be looking at the impacts of climate change on ocean transport routes. And there's not a great deal of breadth in terms of the evidence we can use here. So what I'm going to focus on is the Arctic region. And on your left, you can see the extent of sea ice and its retreat, and it shows you how it shrinks really between 1970 and 2100. So you see pretty much a complete loss of Arctic sea ice expected in that time frame. Now bear in mind there is uncertainty about the rate of that ice loss. And this is one projection, but this depends on kind of the different emission scenarios and development scenarios that we will experience in that time frame. But what it does open up is the opportunity for a whole number of different Arctic shipping lanes. So the most famous being the Northwest Passage, but you've also got the Northern Sea Route, the Transpolar Sea Route, and the Arctic Bridge Route shown in this particular map on the right-hand side. So I'm going to develop some of the detail around these shipping lanes. Before I do that, I think I would just like to point out the dominance of Russia in the Arctic area. So Russia has really seen this as of high geopolitical importance and has invested massively in its infrastructure. So the graphic on the right shows the number of Arctic icebreaker ships in Russia in comparison to Canada and the USA. So in fact, Russia has 40 icebreaking ships that can navigate the Arctic, and this dwarfs other Arctic nations. Not only that, but Russia has really expanded its kind of economic activities in the Arctic, in terms of Arctic ports, in terms of shipping facilities, so it has 11 Arctic ports now of varying sizes. So some countries in the region are kind of looking at opportunities to develop infrastructure as well. So Iceland is currently investigating the feasibility of a deep water port in the northeastern tip of the country, and that's to maybe try to profit out of kind of increasing traffic within the Arctic region. And the state of Maine in the US is also looking at an Arctic hub in Portland. But these are just small infrastructural projects really in comparison to kind of Russia's dominance. So the big example to look at would be the Northwest Passage. You can see it highlighted here in the map to the right. And of course, these shipping lanes are really, really challenging shipping lanes. And one of the reasons for that is the archipelago of Canada's Arctic region. And so this kind of shelters ice and it makes it very, very dangerous to navigate. But in 2014, the Nunavik became the first cargo ship, so the non-specialized ice-breaking ship to traverse this passage. And it was delivering nickel from the Canadian province of Quebec to China. And today this is a viable route. It does open up for a couple of months in the summer when the Arctic sea ice is reduced, and there is a strong likelihood that this could become available for full year navigation in maybe even 10 to 15 years. Again, uncertainty around that. And I want to stress here that a lot of these cargo ships that are using this passage are escorted cargo ships. They still require some of the icebreakers to lead the way. But of course, that would bring massive advantages in terms of cutting distances and costs of transporting goods out of Asia towards the US and European markets. This graph here shows the increasing trend of passages across the Northwest Passage, and it also shows you by colour the type of vessels. But the pie chart is a little bit better. I just want to pick out here, look, small vessels, adventurer vessels that have got more capability and flexibility in these waters, 32%, 33% are escorted Coast Guard icebreakers. But you do see here, yeah, we've got research vessels. When we start to look at kind of big kind of carriers, oil tankers just 1%, passenger ships 11%, so these cruise liners perhaps making some progress entering that, but cargo still very low. So it's still an opportunity for sure, but not yet fully available and not fully developed. And I just want to kind of reflect here on the sensitivity around Arctic transport. Of course, it's very dangerous. There's a lot of sea ice, and it's a very sensitive area for environmental reasons and indigenous communities. So to highlight one example, the 1989 Exxon Valdez oil spill in Alaska, and the kind of consequences of that environmental disaster in that area are still being felt today. It's a particularly challenging environment to clean up any oil spills or vessels that maybe crash in that area. You haven't got the airports, you haven't got the hotels, you haven't got the ability to get people and resources into that area to manage those cleanups. They're very remote, they're very extreme. And so, it's a very sensitive subject in terms of whether we should be exploring this area. Scientists also worry about the noise of Arctic ships and how that could put stress on Arctic marine mammals. And so yeah, definitely the verdict is out on this. I'm not sure whether this will be fully developed.